Hi, my name is Nico Kruger, and today we're going to take a look at a banking customer success story in utilizing Perfecto to reach their goals. First, let's look at the challenge. This is a regional banking customer with about 800 full-service branches located across 7 states in North America. Now, this customer is very well known for phenomenal customer service within these branches. But of course, as all banks are facing a digital disruption, they need to stay competitive and innovate by adding digital services to their existing portfolio for their customers. Now, the digital team was tasked to provide this, and specifically the digital QA team was tasked to ensure the quality of this application, be it on iOS or Android or web devices, and also increase the velocity of these releases to keep up with this constantly changing challenge. Now, the first step in looking at how we can help and assist this customer is to understand what their goals were. And this customer set themselves a goal of a 4-star or higher review inside of these app stores. So really for all their banking customers that would utilize their application in an Android device or iOS device, they wanted a phenomenal experience and really wanted a high rating. Now, what we were able to find very, very quickly as we started to understand their challenges is that they had about 2,500 complaints in the various app stores, and these complaints were coming from devices that they couldn't test. And that's 76% of those complaints. So really what it came down to is that this mobile team really didn't have access to the devices to discover these defects that were now slipping into production and into the hands of their customers. And really, they only had the ability to test about 20% of their customer base. So what we needed to look at first is what are these devices that are causing a lot of these complaints to happen in the first place, so we can understand where we need to start to address this challenge. And you can see on the right hand side that is quite easy to do, not only from the App Store, but also some of the internal data that this customer had available from their digital team. Now, this banking customer had a clear set of goals that they wanted to achieve with Perfecto. The first was they wanted to improve quality, they wanted to increase their velocity, the ability to get faster feedback to their developers and engineers and QA people so that they can fix problems faster and really focus on innovative new features for their banking apps. And thirdly, they wanted to see if they can reduce cost by delivering this in an automated fashion. Now, the only real way to improve quality, increase velocity, and look at handling the cost part of it is to introduce continuous testing for these teams. This means you are continuously testing this app on a daily, hourly basis for the various teams. The second thing we needed to do is to understand if we're going to do continuous testing is how do we cover all the different devices that we had problems with from our customer base. So we needed to get about an 80% coverage at a minimum for our user base. Now, typically for most teams using Perfecto, they can actually see an 85% test automation coverage using the Perfecto platform because we have the ability to automate more advanced features and functionalities within our platform. These are things like real user simulations or persona testing. Think of things like Touch ID, Face ID, GPS, the ability for a developer to connect directly to a device from anywhere in the world, the ability to test more advanced functionality that's coming out and that users are expecting, like voice interaction and so on. The ability to do that inside of Perfecto allows our customers to really go to that high level of automation not really seen with any other platform. The other part of this goal for this customer was, of course, to get that fast feedback. So really what they were looking for is how can we increase our developer productivity by giving them faster feedback. So really for a developer and the QA users of the system is how can I run a regression suite and get faster feedback roughly in about 60 minutes or less. Of course, I want to try and reduce the manual effort required to test every single release, as this not only slows down their velocity, but of course it could impact quality as well because you simply cannot get to all the variations for the apps that you need to test. Of course, they want to try and consolidate into a single platform for their testing coverage. This is a platform that allows for both mobile as well as web tests for the different browsers, different phones that they need to support within their organization. And of course, finally, in doing so, they will eliminate some of these defects slipping through production, that'll keep their App Store rating low because, of course, they want to keep it at a 4.5 star rating or higher. So really, once you have those goals, we can start to tackle this problem with the Perfecto team. So the first thing we do here at Perfecto is we take a look at your current state. So right now, the team has very low coverage for the devices. And this is clear by looking at the results in the App Store, because they have a limited set of devices. In fact, they can only cover about 6 platforms today, which is 20% of their customers, as we mentioned earlier. So they have very limited automation because they're doing mostly manual testing. So about 50% of their tests are automated today, and the others are all manual. And what we see is that a lot of bugs are slipping through to production based on some of those reviews and feedback they received. So when we look at the team that's responsible for this, they had about 10 QA testers and 1.5 automation engineers. And the bulk of the QA time and cost was really focused on manual effort and testing. And really, they could only do partial regression at night against only about 4 devices. So really, they weren't in a good place to innovate because they're really falling behind as it is with this team and couldn't really innovate and solve those things that they wanted to do. And that, of course, caused that massive leakage into production for a lot of problems for their customers. So the first thing we do with the Perfecto team is we implement what we call a Perfecto Black Belt Digital Architect. And the goal here is quite simple. We really want to take those existing test automation scripts that are causing a lot of maintenance headaches and are really constantly in the red and not adding value, and turning those into success. So turning them green, where we take those tests, fix any issues that they have today that's causing them to fail by implementing some of our best practices. And of course, making sure that these tests indeed add value, because if tests aren't adding any value, we should also get rid of them. They aren't useful to the team because nobody's actually looking at those results because they're constantly red. So understanding which tests are valuable, making sure those pass, and making sure that they are easy to maintain and update. And really about 24 sessions with this Black Belt Digital Architect at Perfecto, and roughly an hour each session, we were able to move this customer from a 34% success rate to a 77% success rate for their existing test automation scripts. Now, once we've done that, we can really start to look at solving the problem of moving some of these manual tests over into automation and improving the execution pass rate. So the first thing we needed to do was we needed to add that automation engineer so that we can increase the ability to not only maintain those existing scripts, but now we can also start to address the backlog of updates that they need to do, and also the new features that they can then start to script against. We also wanted to reduce some of the manual testers, as they needed to be freed up to do other work as well. And of course, we needed to increase the device coverage that this customer required. So the next part of this exercise then is to see how do we address those. So the first thing we do is we looked at the device coverage that is actually required for this customer, so we could expand that coverage. So the first thing is we added and ensured that they could cover 22 platforms at a minimum. So that is 60% of the market coverage at phase 1. That also meant that we can now start to increase the automation as well. So with this additional automation engineer, we were able to increase the scripting and add about 80% coverage with test automation on a daily and nightly basis. What that meant was they immediately had a cost reduction of about 12% because they now freed up a lot of these manual testers. What it also allowed them to do is that they could actually run a full regression test set every night on 22 devices. That also meant that they could do smoke tests 4 times a day on these 6 devices, so they can get quick feedback if anything is breaking with any new features or updates that they wanted to perform. Of course, this allowed a developer to also get instant feedback on a code change roughly within an hour. And what this allowed them to do is catch bugs faster and really help set up the team for success in the future. So how do we know what to cover? One of the things we do with these customers and teams that we work with is understanding what the coverage need is for their specific customer base. Now we look at their internal data that they collect. We also look at the App Store data and other third-party data that are best practices for various devices. Now, of course, we have a coverage index that is updated every number of months, but we can see how the market is changing and which devices our customers should be focusing on. With a combination of this data, we could help assist the customer to pick the right devices, the right operating systems for these various devices, and they can implement these within their platform to ensure that they test all the various combinations out there. This also easily allows us to see if there's a change in the market with new operating systems, so they can address those quite quickly. So what were the actions and outcomes? So first of all, the investment this team had to do was understand what they needed to do to fix the problem, and that was implementing the Perfecto Black Belt service. Secondly, they implemented the Perfecto platform. That, of course, includes expanding the ability to have more devices and web infrastructure available for their team to execute these tests against. So the first action was to improve that pass rate for the existing test automation scripts, and then, of course, we can increase the automation percentage as a whole. We leveraged the existing test automation suites and expanded them so they can cover more platforms with minimal maintenance and script updates. The outcome is very, very impressive. What they were able to do is to increase that overall test coverage, so they could actually move up their regression platform coverage by 267%. That's from 6 to 22 mobile platforms. They were able to reduce their manual testing effort because they increased the test automation about 65%. So they could spend less time manually testing things that can now just run as part of a test automation suite. What that allowed them to do is to eliminate the risk-based testing effort they had implemented before. So they could now release with confidence, knowing that they've covered more of their potential platforms and operating systems that their customers will actually be using. But of course, at the end of the day, it's all about, did we get our main goal achieved? And that is improving the app rating. And this customer was able to do that successfully. So to summarize, before Perfecto was implemented at this customer, they really had a 20% coverage of their customer base and really took a risk-based testing approach to try and cover as many things as humanly possible for their team. But what that resulted in was that they could only do a partial regression test at night, covering about 20% of devices. And clearly, the results from the App Store reviews and customer feedback wasn't very positive. What they achieved in implementing Perfecto was very, very impressive indeed. They were able to increase this to 80% customer coverage. They were also able, and this is critical for them, to have beta operating system coverage. And when a new device comes out, they have it available in the Perfecto platform on the same day. That meant that they were starting to get ahead of the curve for new devices and operating systems, really eliminating that testing backlog that many teams struggle with. And really, they often take months to address these things. But with the Perfecto platform, they were able to stay on top of this very quickly. They were able also to achieve a full regression test execution every single night. And what that meant was it freed up devices so they could do smoke testing 4 times a day. And in fact, they could complete these within 30 minutes. That meant they were able to get feedback to the developers roughly within an hour of a code change. So if a developer submitted a code change to the repository, the continuous integration server will deploy this and run the set of tests, and the developer will get almost instant feedback on if something went wrong. If you want to learn more about how Perfecto can help you, feel free to visit perfecto.io.